Hello, everyone. My name is Courtney Bissell, and I am the chair of the ESL department at Southwestern College in Chula Vista, California. Today, I'm going to talk to you about guided self-placement for ESL at Southwestern College. So, as you probably learned already today, the fact that AB 705 has transformed placement in California's community colleges. In particular, English and math placement is now based primarily on GPA, and English and math departments are strongly recommended by the Chancellor's Office to also use guided self-placement instead of testing to place students who don't have 4 years of high school data or who can't be placed with GPA. For English as a second language, guided self-placement is not required, and at the moment, California Community College ESL credit programs are still allowed to use other instruments to place students in credit ESL programs, for example, tests that have been used in the past. However, at Southwestern College, we've decided to move to a guided self-placement model. So today I'm going to talk to you first about why we made that decision to move to guided self-placement. We'll talk about what our guided self-placement process is, a few things to keep in mind about guided self-placement, what non-credit and adult school ESL programs can do to best prepare their students for guided self-placement into community college credit programs in California. And then I'll give you some further information that you can take a look at on your own if you want to look more into what guided self-placement is and some of the research that's been done about it. As you might have noticed from this slide, throughout the presentation, I will be using the abbreviation GSP to refer to guided self-placement. So, why did Southwestern College decide to dive into guided self-placement since we're not yet required to do so? And many ESL programs are still using the testing and other tools that they've used in the past to place students. There are three main reasons that we made this decision. First is that there is a large amount of research, for example, research presented by the RP group, that is indicating strongly that placement tests are a notoriously poor predictor of student achievement in coursework. This research is one of the key reasons that AB 705 legislation was passed in the first place. However, most of the research that's been done and was presented does focus on English and math courses. However, we believe that research is likely to also apply to ESL students as well. And in fact, we did do our own research on our students at Southwestern College. I had a sabbatical in spring of 2018, and during that sabbatical, I analyzed all of the student data that we had for the 7-year period that our academic ESL program, which is an integrated skills content-based program, had existed. It was launched in fall of 2010. So I looked at all of the student records for that 7-year period, particularly for all of the students in the 2 highest levels of our program. And one of the things that I noticed when looking at this data was that students who were placed by our placement tool, which was a writing sample placement test, into the highest level were succeeding not just at high rates, but nearly 100%. We have 2 courses at our highest level, and for students who tested in for the life of the program, 98% passed one of the classes, and 100% of those students passed the other class. And not just that, but when they continued on to transfer level English, which at Southwestern College is English 115, 100% of those students went on to pass transfer level English 115. So This seems great on the face. It's wonderful to have such high, incredibly high levels of students passing. However, there is kind of a dark side to this data, which is that if we have 100% of students who are passing a course and 100% of students who are then passing transfer level English, this seems to indicate that we're making access very difficult, that we're making it so difficult, in fact, that only the the best of the best students who are extremely likely to pass even have access to that course and are allowed to take it. And in fact, the numbers of students who were placed in our highest level were quite small to begin with, which indicated that there were issues of access, which relates to the next reason that we decided to implement GSP, and that has to do with AB 705. So, with the full implementation of AB 705 for English in the fall of 2019, we knew that 100% of students, including anyone who would be considered an ESL student at Southwestern College, would be given access to transfer level English if they chose to take it when they entered the college. 100%. Now, some of those students may be recommended to take a co-requisite course along with that transfer level English course, but all students would be able to access that course if they chose to. So if we had kept our old ESL placement test, what that would have meant is that students coming into the college could walk into a transfer level English class and register, but they could not walk into the advanced level ESL class and take it if they chose to, or even the third or the second level of ESL. So it would mean that our barriers to higher level ESL classes were far more strict than the barriers to transfer level English, and we had significant concerns that that would lead to students taking transfer level English, even if they would have benefit from more linguistic study in an ESL class, simply because they didn't want to enter at the lowest level of our program, and as the data showed us from the data analysis project, that it would be extremely difficult for them to pass the test into the high levels of ESL. So this was a reason that it seemed clear that it was a good idea to implement a different process for placement that would allow greater access for students. So, what is that process? First off, I'd like to give a quick caveat, which is that our GSP process is very much under development. We piloted it in January of this year, and then we went back to our old written placement for several months while we revised our process based on feedback of those who implemented it, improved the process. We just began our second phase of implementation, but we still have a long way to go in terms of finalizing this process. So this is very much a draft. However, because I know that there's a lot of interest in these guided self-placement processes, and across the state, people are looking into these types of programs, I am going to share my materials with you. I've sent this PowerPoint presentation to Margaret Teskey, and hopefully she will be able to share it with you. And you'll find links in this presentation to the materials that we're using, so you can see in more detail what the process is like. So the first phase of the GSP process is that the student takes a survey. The survey asks questions like what experience students have learning English, where they have studied English, whether it's a U.S. high school or a non-credit program or an adult school, whether the student has read books in English, whether the student considers themselves a strong student, any tests that the student has taken of their English language ability, including the CASAS test, also tests like the TOEFL. And then after answering those survey questions, the student reads sample materials and student writing from all 4 levels of our academic program. They read a short vocabulary lesson and then a reading sample, and then an example of student writing prior to the first day of class, and then a list of entry skills and exit skills for each level. And this is all written in a student-friendly language. After that, the student is given detailed information about the ESL program, including information such as how long it will take them to reach transfer level English if they begin at the different levels of the program, how the course sequence relates to degree applicable coursework, and data about the success rates of students in the ESL program. After reading all of that information, the student chooses what they think would be the best level in the program for them. And at that point, the student is given a placement that is based on their choice, but also on the other measures which are indicated in the survey. For example, if a student says in the survey that they've studied English for 4 years, whether it be through non-credit adult school or in another country, that will automatically put them in the third level of our program. And even if they indicate that they feel they are a beginner level, that experience of 4 years of study would automatically give them that higher placement. And whichever is the highest level of all the indicators, that's the level that they're placed into. So no response that they give to any of the questions can bring them down to a lower level. If they low test score or if they say that they're not a good student, nothing will bring down their placement, but certain questions can have the possibility of bumping up their placement. So even if a student believes that they're a beginning level student, they will officially receive a placement of a higher level class. However, although they may be placed in the highest level, but they have the right to enroll in the lower level class, but that placement gives them the flexibility to move up to a higher level if they so choose. Finally, once they've received their placement, part of the process includes the student getting information about registration and other college resources. A few things to keep in mind about the guided self-placement process is that guided self-placement is not a test. It's an informational and educational process. And this change is a huge mental perspective shift for everyone involved, students, faculty, counselors, assessment staff at the college. It is a very different way of looking at the assessment and placement process. In this model, when a student walks in, they are given as much information as possible. If they have questions or don't understand anything, they can ask. We provide translations whenever possible. They are given clear information about how their choices are going to affect them down the line. This model is very empowering for the student. It begins their relationship with the college as one of being treated with respect, being given responsibility, and also accountability and control over their own future in college. This process also has the benefit of giving students a big picture perspective of their own education the moment that they walk in the door. So, what can non-credit and adult school ESL programs do to prepare their students? First of all, the main thing that you need to keep in mind is that colleges across the state are implementing AB 705 in different ways, particularly right now in ESL, because ESL is not yet mandated to discontinue use of testing instruments. So it's very important that you communicate closely with the colleges in your region and find out what the ESL English and math faculty are doing to implement AB 705. And the more information you have, the better you can prepare your students. Students in non-credit and adult school programs should be given access to information about credit, ESL, and transfer level English course sequences and programs and placement processes so that they can make better decisions about their own futures. Finally, again, I'm going to send this PowerPoint to Margaret Teskey, and I hope she'll be able to share it with you. This slide includes many of the articles and research that were used in the development of our guided self-placement program, and they can also just help you understand better the philosophy and the underpinning of the guided self-placement model. Also, the very first bullet point is a copy of all of the guided self-placement materials that we are currently using at Southwestern College. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Please do not hesitate to contact me for more information at cbussell@swccd.edu. Thank you so much to Margaret Teskey and to CASAS for inviting me to share this information with you.